sent me a message saying that he's stuck with the meeting with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, so he might come in a while, but I think let's pass to the next speaker. He just apologized for that, but he just sent me a message. Sorry for that.
Great, thank you, Denise, for informing us, and fully understand this is a special time, and Pakistan is also under the attack of the virus. So now let's move on to the next session of the event, and I now pass on to Professor Xiaolan to chair the session.
Thank you, Professor Fu. Well, for the next session, we would like to celebrate the launch with everyone here today about the technology tool that we have been mentioned in the previous session by all the important people. So for the first item in this agenda, so we would like to briefly introduce about this company and the technology. So let's welcome Professor Xiaolan Fu to do a brief introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Xiong, and good morning and good afternoon again, everyone. It's a great honor for me to present to you OxValue.ai, a new platform for the valuation of technology. I will share my screen and with some slides. I have 12 slides, but I will go quickly. I hope I will go quickly through the slides and give everyone a kind of a brief introduction of OxValue.ai. So first is about the motivation of the research. As our key opening remarks have highlighted, innovation is key for competitiveness of companies and key for the long-term economic growth of countries. Along the innovation chain, a critical step is to translate the scientific and technological inventions into economically useful and viable products, and transfer them from the universities and the research institutes to the industry. And all the way, continuous investments into innovation are needed. However, there are a lot of obstacles and bottlenecks that hinders the investment into innovation. One of the bottleneck is that the valuation of technology, because the complexity of technology and hence the difficulty in the valuation, and also the high cost of the technology valuation, and also we have limited experts in each area, experts of the knowledge in each area, which have the knowledge for both the frontier technology and the markets. The existing methods for technology valuation have significant limitations, and this has led, as the chief technology officer of IBM criticized, that the due diligence of patent assets is more a myth than reality. So the lack of objective valuation tool and the information asymmetry between the investors and the inventors significantly hindered the much needed investment into innovation and the technology transfer. And my journey to start this started in 2015, 6 years ago, when I meet one of the senior manager in charge of technology transfer and the merger acquisition of one of the leading technology company in the world. And he was asking me, Professor Fu, is there any theory of technology valuation? I told him, no, there isn't a valuation. And he was disappointed. And I asked him, you are a leading company, you are in your industry, you have thousands of experienced engineers. And do you still have difficulty in evaluate the technology that you would like to invest or acquire? He said, yes, the technology progressed very fast. And also there are a lot of new things coming out. So I told him when he was disappointed to learn there is no theory about technology valuation. I said, in 1992, there is a theory which is an asset pricing theory for the financial asset. Pricing theory of financial asset has won the Nobel Prize. However, and actually we have a potential to develop a theory for the valuation of the intangible asset, the intellectual property and the technology. And so we started to talk about the important factors that should be considered in the valuation of technology. We found a lot of common grounds, and we started the journey. And we realized this can benefit a lot of people. The academic community, in terms of research and the teaching, can benefit the investors in the public sector and the private sector and the multinationals also, which make technology investment all the time. And we will also benefit the inventors who would like to transfer their technology at a fair price, and also the university technology transfer offices. In addition to this, the consulting companies which provide technology valuation can use this tool to do the valuation at a much lower cost and make the valuation much more accessible and affordable. And also the intellectual property offices in various countries and the world intellectual property organizations can also use this to help the technology transfer and also the measurement of knowledge production. And this can also be used by international organizations which dedicated for international technology transfer to help the developing countries. And of course, as Mark Logan has mentioned, the national governments, like the statistical offices, can improve their measurement of their national gross production by including the measurement of knowledge. Currently, the GDP only measures the production in the manufacturing and services and agriculture, and the knowledge production has not been taken into account. So all this tool can be used by so many communities. That's a very important motivation for us to embark the journey. So what we have done is we developed a conceptual framework for the valuation of technology, and also a methodological framework to develop an empirical tool that can be used by the investors and the inventors. And we developed this industry by industry, and using big data and the econometrics and machine learning, artificial intelligence techniques for the estimation to develop the tool, and also for the validation of the tool. And we did this industry by industry, starting from the digital technology sector. And from there, our first stage results, actually, to be honest, is better, and actually much better than what I expected. The explanatory power of the full ILE model has shown, it can explain 85% of the variations in the sample. And the younger the startup, the higher, the greater the predictive power. And also we used this, using the machine learning methods for the validation, and also we used the real examples to see how powerful this evaluation tool is. So to be honest, when we start to do this, I don't know the result. I was kind of anxious to know the result. So we apply this with the acquisition of DeepMind by Google. Our estimation is 590 to 650 million results. And actually later, when we find out, Google actually paid 640 million US dollar. So fall in this narrow range of our estimation. So our founder then gave us another real case, Oculus, acquired by Facebook. So our estimation is 200 to 230 million US dollar, and later we found Facebook actually paid 200 million. Also, again, within this range. So we applied patents in the US, in Europe Patent Office and in China. And following that stage, we expand research into the pharmaceutical sector and to evaluate the drug invention and the medical devices, and also validate the tool using the data in the US. And we find some differences, need to make some adjustments, but overall the valuation framework works well. And also we use this to develop tools for the valuation for trademarks, copyrights, and also considered, how competition might affect the pricing strategy and how firms can use the best strategy for them in the acquisition or in the technology transfer. So using the auction theory, which won the Nobel Prize last year. So this tool can offer both economic and social impact by promoting more investment into innovation, because the investors will be more confident with an independent third-party valuation as a guidance, as a benchmark. And this can facilitate international technology transfer and to have a kind of objective valuation. And the consulting income from the startup will fund research and studentship in the university. And also by collaborating with United Nations, WIPO, and we can help global technology transfer to the developing countries. And also we can collaborate with national statistical offices to improve the measurement of GDP. So all these are the potential benefits that this tool can offer to the world. That's why the university decided that we can, set up a web-based company to accelerate the impact, the social and economic impact. We call it OxValue.ai. So this OxValue.ai will be a venture with the objective of making technology valuation more objective, accessible, and affordable. And it will be a social enterprise that uses a multifaceted business model to ensure its financial stability and while achieving its core goals of enabling technology transfer to the developing countries and the funding research and capabilities building at the university. And one of the experts in the field, Cyrus Laraspo, he mentioned in his kind of social network that this could be a game changer. This could be a game changer. So it will offer a new approach for the valuation. It will provide a useful guide for decision making for the investors and the inventors for transfer and for investment. And also it will be a sustainable kind of social enterprise that offer free services for the low-income countries and with surplus income to reinvest in research via scholarship and research posts. And we will also partner with global professional institutes to set new standards and new measurement of knowledge. And the team, we are proud to have currently we have a team of 3. In addition to myself, we have Professor Eugene, who is Associate Dean International of Surrey University, serving as Managing Director of the social enterprise. And also we are lucky to have Professor Diego Sanchez Ancocha, who is head of the Oxford Department for International Development, to serve as a board directors. So for the company, looking forward, we will build our business and the services ecosystem through partnerships. We will share our knowledge and also build a better world together. And we have collaborated so far with the Shanghai United Assets and Equity Exchange and the China IP Run, which is one of the largest specialized IP services company, and also Open Business Council, and also in the group. But all these are our first wave of precious collaborators. And in the future, we'll build up this ecosystem with other partners to serve the world and make changes for good. So that's all from me. This OxValue.ai, which aims to make technology valuation objective, open, and accessible and affordable, and to promote investment into innovation and facilitate technology transfer in both the developed and the developing countries. That's all from me. I will stop here.
Thank you, Professor Xiaolan Fu. Just share with everyone that our event is also streamed lively on YouTube. Now we have 450 audience on YouTube. So not only the people in the room, but also on YouTube. Professor Xiaolan Fu have given us a very good understanding of the technology and also the vision. And we are very glad to have our very important 4 partners already who are very leading in their field. Okay, so and next I would also thanks for the university constant support to help this technology now to be commercialized. So that's why we have a next very important speaker, Mr. Chris Fellingham, who is working in the university innovation office called Oxford University Innovation, OUI, to specialize in support research and innovation. Chris, so now the floor is yours. Let me see. Is Chris here? If not, let's move to the next speaker to see if say later if Chris could come back. Next would be our very important collaborator, also co-organizer of this event, Mr. Dennis Gada. He's the chairman of the Open Business Council, and he would have to talk about the vision of future technology investment. And Dennis has organized several very important technology platforms and attracted millions of audience just in this year. Dennis, now it's your time.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Professor Yu and Professor Xiaolan and all the team that has put this event together and all the speakers. It's a pleasure to be here. And one of the things I would like to highlight is I think really like Professor Xiaolan mentioned, this tool is really important for any business in the world. I think one of the things I've been finding with all my experience working both from an investment perspective and both from a technology and business perspective is that at the moment, we have actually kind of multiple different ways of looking at technology and valuations. And this is sometimes a bit subjective to say less, but it creates a lot of issues. For instance, if you are in Europe, you have one kind of valuation. If you are in the UK, you have another kind of valuation. And if you are in Silicon Valley, is even a much more complex valuation. And we have, for instance, unicorns being valuated purely based on the network of the founders. And we have a lot of challenge when it comes to the way we look at technology and the different variants. And I think this work of the University of Oxford and the work of Professor Xiaolan and all the team is really important because any government, any business, any organization that is looking for a business or for a valuation, this is the most important thing. Because in the end of the day, we have to have some kind of international standards. And this is becoming increasingly more important because when you talk about ESG investment, which is right now a very important thing, is that if you look at ESG investment, so environmental and all the different things, this is one area that is going to be affecting, I think, all the business that we have worldwide. And this is precisely what we've been trying to do with the work that we've been doing related with specifically the areas of Open Business Council. And one of the things I've been finding as well is the challenge that we have as business and as organizations to build this properly. So I think one of the notes that I have especially, and that's why we created as well the openbusinesscouncil.org and citiesabc.com, was I think there's an element that is, in one hand, the identity of the data and the way of the importance to measure businesses and different areas. But as well, there's an element that is the research that is necessary for this. And I think this is kind of one of the things that for me is missing and lagging behind. And I think if you get this right, I think you can actually make a much better impact for the world and create much better solutions in the way we look at both the valuation in a more sustainable way, but as well looking at criteria that can be used for a lot of other things in society. And I think this can actually as well take a lot of issues around authenticity of businesses, authenticity of economy. And I think during periods like COVID-19, where we are going through, this is even more important because a lot of the businesses, I would say most of the business right now, are dependent of valuations purely done on the digital world. So the digital scope and the digital framework that we have nowadays, it's the most important thing for everything we do in the world. And this brings us to all the things that of course, most of the countries are trying to do, that is promoting their companies worldwide, promoting their organizations. And this is a big thing when it comes to how to take this forward, how to do these things. So I think I welcome this initiative, and I hope actually to open a lot of doors to countries and to other business ecosystems, and as well as part of the work that I think is critical for the next stage of the world development. And I think, like Professor Xiaolan mentioned and Professor Yu, when it comes to emerging markets, and we have actually right now with us the Minister of Work of Pakistan that I welcome. One of the things that is really important right now is how we can actually use these tools to foster innovation, to foster development. And one of the things I've been finding out with my experience working in multiple emerging markets is that we can actually make a big difference, but at the same time, we can actually create and touch the collaboration that the Vice Chancellor of Oxford mentioned before, because I think the collaboration between countries is more important than ever, and we can tackle a lot of global problems if we work on this together. Of course, it's not a simple task, but I think the universities, for me, should be leading this, and special departments like the one that we have today, and special the work of departments working with universities, working with big corporations and small corporations, and trying to tackle this in the best way. So that's what I'm trying to do with all the things and all the work I am. And from my side, Professor Xiaolan, count on me, and I will make sure that to promote this on a global scale. But I would suggest as well, like Professor the Vice Chancellor of the University mentioned before, and I think for me it's an important thing, is we need to be bold, ambitious, but have a sense of sustainability and a sense of development. And I think that is the part that is key right now, is how we take this is going to be our responsibility as well. And I want to finish with a small example and a small note, that is, when it comes to artificial intelligence, we are all in the first stage. And the first stage is already creating the biggest disruption in the history of humanity. So in the next 5 to 10 years, artificial intelligence, if used for good, can make humanity become the best stage of humanity and actually take us to a completely different level. But there's no doubt that technology is right now our economical default, and is the way we interact with each other, both through platforms like this one in Zoom, but as well with tools like the one that the OxValue.ai can provide for countries, for organizations. So I'm really excited about this, but as well with a sense of responsibility that all together here in this panel and in this event, but as well, we have a responsibility to take this and to use it in the right direction. So I want to thank everyone, and excited to work and collaborate and make this a big success worldwide.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for your passion and vision to support this technology. I think it's a huge contribution from, I think this technology is a contribution from Oxford University to the society. This is what Oxford University always do. Okay, so now I'm very welcome to our honorable guest, Mr. Shabir Ali Quraisi, who is the Minister of State for Housing and Work of Pakistan. So we're very glad that you can join us. Okay, so now the floor is yours.
Distinguished guests, I am sorry to say that the Excellency Mr. Shabir Ali Quraisi, actually our minister is busy in the Parliament because we have a budget finalization today, and just Prime Minister called the Honorable Minister, and I'm really very sorry that he is not able to attend the meeting, but after a few hours, maybe after 1.5 hours or 2 hours, he will be available. I'm not sure if it will be continued or not. So I'm just here to update the position that he is not yet here.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I am the Deputy Secretary to attach with the Minister.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then in this case, we can, shall we move to the next session? Okay, so can I invite our colleague also in the company, OxValue company, and he's a head of a department for Oxford Department for International Development, and also director of this company, Professor Diego Sanchez-Aconchi. So Diego, then the floor is yours.
There we are. Thank you so much, Yu. It's fantastic to be joining all of you today for, I think, at least 3 reasons for me. The first is that obviously the issue of technology, international investment and innovation is extremely important when thinking about the challenges of development and the challenges of the global south. And I think it's extremely important to think creatively about how we can promote innovation. And obviously the intellectual property rights, the patent system becomes extremely important. The second reason is that I think it's very exciting always when we can have a research that contributes to impact, either through policy or, as it is this case, through the creation of a social enterprise that can lead to reducing all kinds of information costs in the world, and especially in terms of technology. And the third is that, of course, my colleague Xiaolan Fu is a central person in the department. In my department, she has made huge contributions to our teaching, our research, and of course the consolidation of an exciting center. So it's always fantastic to join her. I said 3, but there's actually a 4th one, of course, which is it's great to chair this session and to be able to have some time to spend to 3 very distinguished speakers. So let me briefly actually introduce the 3 of them, so then we can go faster in presenting. The first is Dr. Eugene Quian, chairman of USB Securities and in the China group, and chairman as well of UBS China Strategy Committee. He has worked in this bank in Hong Kong and then for Deutsche Bank, leading the whole Asia business in energy and natural resources. Then he joined Citigroup, and now he occupies the current post. Dr. Quian is actually a graduate from our own university, from the University of Oxford. Second, we will have Dr. Sacha Wunsch-Vincent, hope I'm pronouncing the last name well, is head of section Economics and Statistics Division at the World Intellectual Property Organization and co-editor of the Global Innovation Index also there. And of course, this is an organization that is extremely important for the work we are proposing now. He joined WIPO as a senior economist in 2010 and helped the chief economist in a number of very exciting projects, including the World Intellectual Property Report. Before that, he worked for the OECD, as well as the Swiss National Science, as well as being a Swiss National Science Fellow at Berkeley. And finally, we will have Dr. Yumin Kon, CEO of Simprum, who has a PhD in management and graduated from the University of Lisbon. Dr. Kon is a member of the Innovation Fellows Program at Yale University and has thought very seriously about many of these issues around trademarks and innovation. So he's the founder of the Chinese trademark supermarket which is the first e-commerce platform for intellectual property exchange. So very much connected to what we want, and is the chief designer, has been the chief designer of the company Supreme's EPU IP technology service cloud platform. Dr. Kong has a number of honors and distinctions, and occupies and has occupied a number of very important posts in China. So it's really a great honor to receive and to be able to have you all. Let me start with you, Dr. Quian. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Professor. You hear me all right?
Yes,
Great.
hear you all right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to briefly talk to you all. The topic I choose for today's session is actually financing innovation companies in China. As the moderator explained, I work for UBS, the Swiss banking group in China. The entity I chair, the board, is called UBS Securities in China. In fact, it was a domestic full licensed security firm which UBS Group acquired back in 2006. So we've been operating acquired Chinese domestic securities company for about 15 years now. Now, what's happening lately in China, those of you following the innovation theme of China, is that the traditional Chinese economy, still relatively speaking, experienced some growth, but not great, right? I mean, among the major economies, due to the pandemic impact and the recovery really, surprisingly, but not surprising to us, really led by many of the new economy companies, many of the innovation companies in China. Then the cycle started again. The recovery leads to some of the traditional manufacturing sector. And of course, now the domestic consumption is more or less back to the level pre the COVID-19. Given, as I explained, we're in the business doing local securities business. So one key part is actually sponsoring Chinese company to list domestically on Shanghai or Shenzhen Stock Exchange. Now, those of you who follow the Chinese capital market, there has been unprecedented opening, which means on the investor access point of view, China's domestic Asia are now included in the MSCI China All China Index, and waiting for the domestic Asia companies keep rising. We are also at a forefront here in terms of bringing the foreign capital to come and invest in China. And those of you again follow, there are about 2 key ways to investing in Chinese stocks. One is what we call Stock Connect, where bulk of the international investors based in Hong Kong can simply place order and trade and buy and sell the Shanghai and the Shenzhen A shares via Hong Kong Stock Exchange. That's why it called Stock Connect between Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong. But where UBS Securities in China does is to serve many of the QFI, qualified institutional investors, and RQFI, RMB QFI investors. Again, many of them are bona fide international investors. Some of them are what we call offshore Chinese investors. Either it's a red chip entity or some of the major asset management company from China who set up their subsidiaries in Hong Kong and offshore, then raising the money abroad and going back to invest in RMB denominated shares. So these 2 ways, you get an international capital participating in the tune of among the free flow market cap in the Asian market. In total market cap, first of all, is about 80 trillion RMB, but still way below the 100 trillion plus GDP though. So China capitalization ratio, those of you know, compared to the US, where the total market capitalization versus divided by GDP is around at 150% or even higher. China is well below 100%. So that way you can say there would be a lot more securitization happening in China, which means a lot more companies come listing on the Shanghai or Shenzhen Stock Exchange, and many of the companies already listed will see their market valuation going up naturally supported by earnings growth, by the market overall valuation level, et cetera, and of course, typically very much helped by liquidity, which traditionally been led by Chinese retail investors. In China, excuse me, there are about over 200 million retail investor accounts that is actively investing in A-shares. That's a lot, right? That must be a world record. But I think as the Chinese regulators pushing for more institutionalization, among the institutional investors coming to invest in Asia are indeed the international investors. The channels I just explained to you, either through Stock Connect, northbound from Hong Kong, or from the QFII and RQFII purchaser who are moving the foreign currency into China, convert into RMB and purchase and sell A-share stocks. Now that leads me to explain to you what has been happening in Shanghai, which a new board called Shanghai Star Board, STAR, literally means the Shanghai Science and Technology Innovation Company Board. This new board was only opened about 2 years ago in the summer of 2019. And also since then, there has been about just under, excuse me, under 300 companies listed. Excuse me. But what is interesting is, contrast to the traditional listing criteria in China, as well as many of the mature market, where you require the listing applicants have a minimum of 3-year operating history and probably profitable, excuse me, at least 2 out of the last 3 financial years. Here, for the Star Board listed companies, they don't need to have that long operating history, and they can still be loss-making when they seek for the IPO and flotation on the Shanghai Star Board. Now that must be a breakthrough. It is indeed. Shanghai Star Board, the nickname is China's NASDAQ, right? Because the NASDAQ in the US traditionally has now produced the leading international global companies such as Tesla, such as Amazon, and many others who were at the beginning very much in the red. And since then has gradually started making money or back and forth between the loss-making and profitable companies. But nevertheless, these are now the champions of the new economy globally and in the US. Now, China is not yet produced that level of the large size company listed on the Star Board. In fact, the largest Star Board listed companies are 2. One is more a semiconductor called Shanghai International Semiconductor Company, SMIC. Their market cap today is still about 100 billion US or whereabout, so much smaller compared to like the trillion. In fact, the other day, Microsoft just surpassed the $2 trillion US market cap. But Chinese company, these are the largest Star Board listed companies already. The typical size of the Star Board company are from information technology, healthcare, including biochemical or pharmaceutical company, typically the startups, and also some of the other like internet related or using the new innovation tool to promote their business. The other thing is size is such that the Chinese innovation company can come to the market relatively early in their development, stage of development, because judged by the data we compile, the average fundraising size for the Star Board IPO in the last 2 years or so is only about 500 RMB million. So that's about a sub 100 million US. That's the issue size. Typically, this type of company issue 25% new shares post the IPO. So in the enlarged capitalization, about a 25% is free flow. So you times 4 get the typical IPO valuation. So let's say 500 million RMB times 4 means 2 billion RMB average market cap at the time of IPO. Now 2 billion RMB, if you don't make money, your PE ratio is, you know, indefinite, right? It's massive. It's off the chart. If you make a tiny amount of money, we have sponsored 2 of these kind of innovation company, both in the biochemical and pharmaceutical space. One is about a PE. When we help them issue the Star Board IPOs, PE is about 70 times. So it's really much higher, probably 3 times of the Shanghai main board average blue chip company PEs. The other, in fact, is in the red. It's still making quite a sizable losses when we floated them. In fact, the valuation benchmark we use is what we call price to sales. So even use their small sales revenue, we were able to achieve PS ratio in the north of 200 times. So let alone PE. So price to sales is already 200 times. So the second company we achieved, in fact, about at the beginning of a market evaluation, about 7 billion RMB. So it's about $1 billion plus US dollar market cap for loss-making company. Now for Unicom, that's not too bad. In fact, their pre-IPO last round financing valuation was about 60% of that IPO valuation. So it's about right. Now, what's my observation? Just the three of them, then I quickly conclude. One is the whole society not used to company come to do IPO. It was after the NASDAQ and after learning the Hong Kong, which opened under the listing rule 18.8, the appendix, which opened the door for the pharmaceutical and healthcare company to list in Hong Kong, where the loss makings feature in the company financials. So China learned from these two major markets, both NASDAQ and Hong Kong, to start a starboard. The other thing is, this is early days, only 2 years into its opening. We anticipate this market will here to stay for the decade to come, whereby it's not going to be 200 to 300 companies. In fact, we anticipate will be around 2,000 to 3,000 companies become listed on the Shanghai Stock Board, say in the next 10 years or so, on the current rate of the approval and the number of companies come listed every year. And last and finally, China is also learning a lot in terms of how to financing where the innovation company lacks most. From the standpoint we serve the company and we're really the capital intermediary, or bring the bridge between the international and domestic capital, bring them closer to and get them the access to the high growing and the successful innovation stories in China. So if I could conclude, financing innovation company in China is only the new story that is commencing. And I think a lot more things will happen, a lot more excitement will be generated. I think it is in this area, this forum's theme, I thought is very timely. It's the international investment and the innovation. I believe capital and the innovation are ultimately should come together to support the real promising growth story of the underlying economy and those new economy companies. Thank you very much. Let me get back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Quian. That's extremely interesting. Let me quickly go, because we are slightly delayed in the schedule, go immediately to Dr. Wunsch-Vincent, and the floor is all yours. Oh, he left. He left right. Oh, he's back. There we are. The floor is now truly all yours.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I have a worker here and he decided to just start drilling when I was about to start my speech. So I apologize for that. Look, welcome to everybody and many thanks to Oxford University and the whole group, Xiaolan in particular, for keeping us involved. Many, many thanks. Now, of course, I represent WIPO, and we have a lot of things to say on valuation, IP, and the value, the high value of the tool that you just presented. But for this talk, I was not asked to discuss this. I was asked to discuss the impact of the crisis on innovation and maybe give a little bit of a few ideas where the journey is going. So it's a slightly distinct topic, but I still hope that it will be useful to this group. Now, let me briefly share my screen. Is that okay for you? You can see the slides? Okay, very good. So in principle, one of the things that I do here at WIPO is I deal with the...
Can I interrupt for a second? So we can see both. So maybe you can put display the whole thing, because at the moment we can see the slides your second slide as well.
Yeah, it's the screen share function. Let me try another way.
No, we can see it this way, so it's not a big problem.
Is that?
Yes. Now, if you enlarge it, it will be perfect.
Yeah, there's some latency, so it takes a while. Yeah, look, I'm afraid I don't want to lose too much time on this.
That's fine.
Because you're short of time, you know, so let's maybe proceed like this. I think almost the previous way of showing was better, no?
Probably, yes. Probably right. The other way then is better.
All right. But good, let's stay with this format to avoid losing too much time. So in principle, one area of responsibility beyond all the more specific IP things I do is this Global Innovation Index, which essentially monitors the impact of the business cycle on innovation, but also looks specifically at the innovation performance across countries and across time. So it's a bit of a pulse on innovation. And so Xiaolan in action asked me to give a perspective on the impact of the crisis on innovation expenditure, and also the access to the state of global innovation finance, which is related to your topic, of course. Now, so my main messages are quite important, and they are more or less my personal reflections and might be an inspiration for future policy and academic work. So, of course, everybody is asking us around the table this famous question about the impact of the pandemic on the crisis, right? So it's everybody that works in this field is asked this. Either you are a VC and you're asked to contribute on this point from that perspective, you're a policymaker, an analyst. And in my humble opinion, we fall always into these two widely disparate extremes with very easy conclusions, and we conclude too easily, too fast. One, the conclusion that you hear often in UN type settings, particularly in the context of SDGs and so forth, is that the crisis, will destroy decades of innovation between rich, poor, advanced, lagging firms, deepening divides. That's always a popular conclusion. The other one, which is probably employed by all of us around the table, is this, other sort of extreme. A crisis is a sad opportunity to waste. We all know this quote. Every crisis harbors possibilities, and certainly that's true. And then, Xiaolan and me, we come with innovation above the radar or below the radar, and we see a lot of, we're optimists, so we see a lot of perspectives and possibilities. Still, I would argue that, those two extreme perspectives probably, miss the reality, which is often some sort of a middle ground. So it's just to remind the group and ourselves that the data available, in fact, to assess the state of global innovation, and in particular, the distribution of innovation across different groups, sectors, and countries is so poor, right? Still today, after 20 years of work on innovation metrics, and in particular in your topic, right? If you ask me for licensing data on IP, any data on IP marketplaces, this is something I should know, right? Because I'm the World IP Organization. There's no data at all on this stuff. And but in fact, the truth of the matter is, even on VC, on R&D data, it's data that is really hard to come by. And sometimes the data that I'll show in a minute actually hides very important sectoral and country-specific differences, okay? So it's no secret that global R&D is most likely going to go up, right, this year anyway. But that is most likely just because of China and the United States, right, and some high-income countries. The story is much more complicated, on a country level in particular, if you look beyond countries that are the main drivers of innovation. The same is true at the firm level, and it's going to be very interesting to hear from Dennis and from others around the table on the firm level. But all the data that I have points to, of course, Google, imploding their R&D budgets for 2020 even higher. For most of the Chinese companies as well, US companies too. But the real question, what the Sri Lankan Coconut Research Institute is going to undergo in terms of crisis adjustment, the Pakistani firms, or yesterday I had a lot of Indian firms or firms from Africa. I mean, that is a much more complicated question that really at the moment we're not answering. So I think it's kind of time to ask some of these tough questions and look beyond these global averages, and maybe not only use the crisis to reflect on how to boost innovation in these top performers, in these winning few, but also to think a little bit about how can we now maximize the impacts of innovation. And this, looks a little bit like a good motherhood speech, like innovation for all, innovation for people's lives. But I really mean it at the more granular level, So the real question is, if you have major breakthroughs in AI in a specific US company or Chinese company, if you have a doubling of R&D expenditure just in 2 pharmaceutical companies in some high-income countries, what is in fact then the actual impact on standards of living across the world, on the level of workers, and also on the level of work and play, as I say here. The last point that I want to make is, and then I'll show a few slides here. It's obvious that we all are quite keen to say stuff like, we have to stimulate innovation expenditures as part of the new economic recovery packages that are on the way, right? I mean, this is something that all of us around the table are probably urging our governments to do, right? If they spend $3 trillion on some recovery packages, hopefully there will be some green innovation in it, some expenditures on mobility, et cetera, But, and in fact, most of high-income countries, in particular, countries such as US, China, et cetera, they are throwing a lot of money into future breakthrough technologies, So that's good. But it might not really get to the core of my main message in terms of addressing, not fostering just the winning few, but to some extent also looking at sectors of the economy which are not natural AI or natural mRNA sort of hotspots, right? But which actually contribute in their own little ways, not only to innovation, but also to quality upgrading of jobs, in particular high employment sectors, et cetera. Now, so this is broadly my messages. I have a few slides with data that I want to conclude on. So if you look at really what happened before the crisis, it's extremely interesting, and all of us can be really proud of this. So it's really, I finished my 2019 R&D and VC and 2020 R&D VC estimates last night, and 2019 R&D, world total R&D, is not available data, right? So this is sort of estimates that we've just concluded. And one can really speak of a real innovation bonanza. I don't know if you know what that is, but at least in Western contexts, Bonanza is the series, and it's about finding oil and having had a really, and then becoming very rich with oil. So innovation bonanza here in my slide, what I mean is that for a consistent 5 to 10 years, we've seen levels of innovation expenditures throughout the globe, even in middle and lower income countries, go up significantly. Intellectual property filings also much more balanced, than in any previous point in history. So it's been really, really important to see the impact of and the determination to foster innovation across the globes being so high, including in many countries that are around the table. So ranging from Pakistan to any sort of other country that we have here. So that's really, really good news. So last year I showed this particular slide, which kind of shows that GDP growth is determining the business cycle. Essentially, is the major leading factor for R&D expenditures. And last time around this point of year, all of us were quite worried that R&D would plunge to the similar extent as GDP has done last year. Now, based on my Finnish calculations there, it's going to be something totally different this year, right? So we will see, in fact, growth, right, of R&D in 2019. I mean, in 2019, it was a massive growth, unseen growth, and even 2020 will still be positive growth. So that's unseen in recent human history in terms of breaking the business cycle with respect to innovation expenditure. So that's great news. The same is true for companies. Here I show just yearly R&D expenditures of some of the top companies in terms of R&D expenditures. And for the most part, I mean, in particular in high R&D intensive sectors, ICT, pharma, software, the R&D expenditures in 2020 have grown. Of course, automotive is a special case. So, and also tourism and these sort of things have actually seen falling R&D expenditures, but often growing R&D intensities indeed. So again, if you see this, in my previous slide, I'm telling you that 19 was super positive and 2020 positive still, you could be, of course, concluding that we're all safe, but that misses my earlier main messages, of course, that this is just the main winning few, right? As I say. And then the broader policy question here is, or a question also from a financial perspective, is if the winning few is enough in terms of driving prosperity and innovation around the world. The same is the case with venture capital. So this is the graph that I showed around this time of year last year, with again VC being determined quite significantly by the business cycle, but actually not that much, not as much as R&D. And with the broader trend having been since the dot-com bubble, and actually catch up to dot-com bubble levels, which actually was heavily interrupted last year in Q1, Q2. So my suspicion expressed to newspapers and so forth was in fact that VC would continue to plunge and be negative in 2020 and recover more slowly than certain other economic business cycle indicators. But it looks like I was quite wrong. It seems that in China, already in Q2, Q3 saw a recovery in VC. US the same, but mainly Asia, strong recovery, making for actually positive growth in global venture capital around the world, right? Again, you could conclude, well, that's great news. So, we're safe. Again, my main message is, well, this access to this innovation is extremely skewed across and within countries, of course. And you know this better than I do. It's shockingly concentrated, right? I mean, we're talking about 112 deals in the whole African continent relative to, tens of thousands of deals somewhere else, and the levels and values are extremely different. So the real question I want to ask here is, it's to which extent we can work together, including through your new tools that you develop, because in my humble view, if you have valuation and of IP, but also ability to license in and out, that actually opens a whole door and marketplace for many new entrepreneurial ventures, and not only the new Googles, but also more humble ventures in the field of medical or agricultural enterprises, textiles, etc., in the developing world. Almost done. So
yes, thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of the policies to stimulate innovation investments, I think that it's important to keep these above points in mind. So don't go only for setting up a fund to be the fastest semiconductor nation or the best AI nation, which of course is happening right now. There's some healthy, I hope healthy competition between countries. but you have to think slightly beyond that and think about more democratic access and distribution of these fruits of innovation, in my humble view, not only for economic prosperity, but I think also for the soundness of the society, future societies we will be walking into. Now, on the level, this is my last slide, on the level of countries, and this is where also your work is extremely important. I think it's more and more key that we help specific firms, individuals in developing countries to access all these beautiful tools and VC deals and funds that you have at disposal. And in my humble view, not enough is done in terms of scouting for promising innovative ventures. And I'm not talking semiconductors and AI. I'm talking sometimes more basic and traditional sectors, and to actually grant these companies and individuals access to new not-for-profit, but also or for-profit international financing schemes to help governments actually identify proper tools to de-risk ventures. That's really key. So it's not only about handing out money, but also in terms of public procurement, grants, and advanced purchase commitments. These tools exist, but even in advanced countries, they're not heavily used. And then, of course, what you're keen on is to develop more vibrant VC and financial markets in some of the countries. And it's not only about high-income VC scouting, but also possibly develop more homegrown VC financial marketplaces, sometimes maybe even sponsored or supported by your particular tool. Thank you very much, Diego, and back to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was very interesting, and thank you for putting this new company in the sphere of your analysis, which I thought it was great. So finally, I think we don't have Dr. Quian, as I said, right? But Mr. Suo, Vice President, to talk. Is that right?
Yes,
yes,
yeah, Mr.
yes.
Lee, to speak on behalf of
Perfect.
Mr. Kong.
So, Mr. Lin, please, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much for coming and for joining us.
Mr. Lin Zhou, yes, Mr. Lin Zhou.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Kong is still here. Dr. Kong is still here, I think. But
yes.
No problem. Please help.
Yeah. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, professors. And I'm Zhou Lin. I'm the representative of Dr. Kong to make a brief presentation. In fact, I'm deeply attracted by the introduction of OxValueAI presentation by Professor Fu. Congratulations. And so my topic is just about how could OxValueAI help Cipron to do IP business to make business success. So that's my topic. I will use a few minutes to make a brief presentation. And my company, Cipron, is committed to facilitating innovation and IP monetization across the world. And mainly, we do IP services with various kinds of technologies. And our service can range from IP registration, IP protection and litigation, IP management, IP monetization, including IP transfer and license. So we mainly provide a comprehensive solution for the enterprises, which can make the use of IP to increase the business competitiveness of a firm. So, that we have some special advantages of IP services. So more than 1 million clients contact with us, and most of them entrust us with IP services. And Cipron helped clients to apply for more than 300,000 trademarks and patents cases every year. I think that's a huge number. And and for me, I do IP business and legal affairs every day. You know, as I have right now, I'm also a lawyer and patent attorney. And I've also run some companies because I have some background with technology, law, and management. So we help the clients to deal with IP and the legal problems also from the point of management. Just why so many clients would like to collaborate with us. Dr. Kong and I helped many clients from China and abroad to deal with patent portfolios transaction and trademark transactions, including Huawei, ZTE, BYD Hire, Hikvision, Tsinghua University, China Academy of Science, some US and foreign and European companies, and also many small and middle companies. But you know, during all these transaction cases, there's always a big problem. The problem is how to judge the monetary value of certain technologies, patent portfolios, and trademarks, because there are so many variables. You know, just 3-4 years ago, I had ever formed a team with 10 patent attorneys to make the evaluation of a patent portfolio with more than 1,000 patents from Tsinghua University. That was a big project. You know, the team needed to consider a large number of patent-related factors such as prior art, technology area, patent filing date, patent life, the breadth of patent claims, the number of patent claims, and so on. It cost us much time to do the project. And of course, Tsinghua University need to pay me a lot of money. And after the project, I reported to the management and professors in the university. And at that time, the evaluation was useful, can help them to do IP commercialization, to the transfer, and to the license. But after 3 years, many things changes. If we want to update the evaluation report, then still much work needs to be done, and money needs to be paid to initiate the project. So during all the IP transaction cases and the investment cases, we have to spend a lot of time and human resource in analyzing and evaluating the IP portfolios. So just because of such kind of experience, I wrote some papers about IP evaluation, and I also organized a team to develop the tools based on AI and big data to do IP evaluation, especially patent evaluation. But the result not good, cannot satisfy the requirement of the practice. But right now, it's a great fortune for us, for CIPRA, for me, to know that the University of Oxford, the team of Professor Fu, to launch the OxValueAI technology evaluation platform, which can help to provide a widely accepted and accredited tool to help evaluation technologies and also patent portfolio, which is also fair and transparent to both parties. More importantly, the tool can provide the result of evaluation, I think, nearly simultaneously when you put into the requirement. So I believe this tool, this platform, not only can reduce the information asymmetry between investor and inventors, but also it can largely improve the efficiency and also cut down the high cost of technology valuation. I believe it is really a thrilling breakthrough. And also, I believe it can surely bring great convenience and improve efficiency during our IP transaction business. I think as a leading company on IP service and technology innovation, CIPRA and our transaction, technology transfer, and IP investment fund will no doubt get benefit from the OxValueAI platform. And especially just recently, Cyprian is launching its UK branch, which is called IPR Play. And IPR Play is a company particularly committed to develop and transfer UK's advanced technology to other countries. Of course, during the process, the intellectual property will be well protected. From our research, it is also found that a large number of technologies and from the university and also startup companies are not well protected and maybe uncommercialized. Then IPR Play, through just providing IP angel fund to the universities and organizations, help them to get their technology patented in UK, China, and other important territories. Then also provide a platform to accelerate the transaction and the technology transfer process. I believe we can get much benefit from the use of OxValueAI. It is highly expected that our business will be greatly strengthened with this platform. So looking forward to jointly building this platform with all the partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very, not just useful, but inspiring for all of us that are working on the platform, and we look for the collaboration. So thank you very much. So I'm afraid that we are running slightly late, but also that I want to give the floor to Chris Fellingham, who has done a lot of work at Oxford in precisely promoting innovation and technology, and has been also instrumental in this particular project. So I'm afraid we are not going to have questions and answers. So we will have first Chris and then move to the last session. So Chris, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Diego, and thank you everybody else. And apologies, I was obviously meant to be here a little bit earlier and there was a time mix-up my side, so apologies to everyone for that. As Diego mentioned, my name is Chris Fellingham and I work at Oxford University Innovation, which is the technology transfer office of the University of Oxford. And historically, that has meant licenses and spin-outs from the university's research. And historically, that meant science research, particularly medical science, physics, all of these areas, which were the traditional areas, you know, obviously the AstraZeneca vaccine, drugs, pharmaceuticals, all these kinds of things were the bread and butter. And the view from the research councils was that that was how you created innovation for the sciences, but that was not how the social sciences generated the impact from their work. And what we've seen in the last 3 years is that that has really started to change, partly because we started supporting it at Oxford, but also at other UK universities. We're now recognizing that creating spin-out companies with research is something that is very much available to social scientists. And this is a particularly exciting new trend, because actually what we're finding is that the formation of a venture to deliver social science research can be extremely powerful in a way that perhaps other tools, while also powerful, it's a new way that we haven't explored. Ventures can grow in a different way, they can take in finance, they can scale in a different way. And that means hopefully that the impact from the research can scale accordingly. And this is something that the research councils in the UK are very excited about as they look to see, okay, you know, we've got this brilliant research in the UK, but how do we make sure that it gets out into society and the economy? And there's no better example of that than Professor Fu's work, because it sits at the intersection of several trends, which we're really excited about. One is that it's social science research, but it also covers technological innovation, as well as obviously how that fits into the context of international development. And I don't actually think there's anything quite as innovative as this going on globally. And I have quite a decent view of that because I cover a lot of the UK spin-outs. This is a particularly exciting project to work on that pushes together all those trends. So what have we been doing to try and help Professor Fu and OxValue.ai? Well, obviously, as Technology Transfer Office, we help with the business development in particular. We also try and help think through what are the different applications of the venture, what's its underlying purpose, what's the team that needs to deliver it, and what further research could be used to help support that venture going forwards. And I have to say, this is easily the most exciting one I've worked on, and we do see immense impact and excitement being generated around Professor Fu's work in this space. And I think it's very much pioneer, actually. And additionally, we did think the innovation is or molecules. Now I'm going to see that social scientists are heralding a wave of very exciting ventures from their research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's very useful. I see the minister, I think, in the screen as well. Eugene, I don't know if you want me to give it him the floor or what you...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Minister, I heard that you were in important policy matters, which means that we are particularly excited to have you with us on this innovation meeting today. So if you want to say a few words now, the floor is very much all yours.
Yeah, I'm here. My name is Shakil Rashid. I'm here to speak on behalf of Mr. Shabir Ali Qureshi, State Minister for Housing and Works, Pakistan. Pakistan nowadays, Pakistan is having a large shortage of housing and units in Pakistan. So there is a large potential for international investors to invest in housing and construction industry of Pakistan. And particularly those companies which have latest technology, particularly artificial intelligence. So because I'm not to take hold of speech of minister because he could not attend this conference because he has an urgent unscheduled meeting with Prime Minister of Pakistan. But to avail an opportunity because of this forum, and due to the advantages of artificial intelligence and latest innovations, Pakistan and because we are here to represent a housing minister, so we will invite and we will appreciate all the international investors to invest in Pakistan, because Pakistan has a large 62% of population is facing shortage of housing units in Pakistan. To meet this requirement, we will, on behalf of Government of Pakistan, will facilitate every international investor with the latest technology to take a speedy work, as it's not possible by the traditional means in Pakistan. And so it's all about what I may say on behalf of Minister.
Thank you. That's very nice, and we appreciate your contribution. So thank you for now the 5 speakers at the end, not 3 speakers. I thought it was a very nice way of linking where we are in the world at the moment, including in the crisis, with the challenge of investing in technology and innovation, with the importance of the social science, but also the importance of this what we hope will be a very exciting platform in advancing more innovation and more technology. So we conclude this plenary panel now, and I give the floor to Eugene to tell us what's next.
Okay.
I think
it's,
yes, it's Dr. Eugene Chen to chair the next session. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to quickly introduce the 3 panelists for the next 15 minutes or so. First is Ms. Sonia Kabir, founder of SBK Foundation and the Ignite Fund, co-chair of the Council of United Nations Technology Bank for LDCs. Second is the panelist is Mr. Vernon Sankey, who's the chairman of the board of the directors of Atos. Third, and the last but not least, Ms. Zulaira Abu Bakar, who's the group CEO at the Technology Park Malaysian Corporation. So welcome three distinguished panelists. If I could firstly invite Ms. Sonia Kabir to speak, could we all keep 5 minutes each for the speaker, please?
Thank you very much. It's an honor indeed to be part of this panel. A little bit of introduction about myself. I'm Sonia. I am a venture capital fund manager. Our fund is registered globally in Singapore. We're an international VC. And I'm also the co-chair of the Governing Council of the United Nations Technology Bank, where we work with technology with the belief that if technology is taken to the last line in a least developed country, we can move that country forward to a middle economy. So just a little bit about what I do, and then I will bridge it to the discussion today. As an early stage VC fund, we focus on a transformative impact for technology startups in emerging South Asian countries. We believe that if you have an ecosystem and you empower it with digital tools and technologies, we can have a proper VC structure going forward. A little bit on what's happening in the impact space for venture capital is that as we are looking at technology companies across emerging South Asia, and we will be focusing on Africa from next year, with a lens on impact, with the lens on SDGs, on ESG, every VC is looking at that and how we can solve the problems of the masses to build an ecosystem, leverage the technology so to build fast and to scale, and last but not least, to invest in the underserved technology startups and empower them. And that's where we see that there's a lot of play that we can leverage with what has been presented today by our panelists who've talked about what can be the ways of evaluating and innovation, the ways of saying how can technology be commercialized and then transferred. Just to give it a little bit of an idea what's happening from the tech bank and also from our VC lens, we're seeing that early stage startups do not get the value that they deserve. Firstly, they're a startup, there's no way of measuring them. So what Oxford is proposing from the technology TMCD is if we could find a way of assigning a common denominator across all the tech startups about valuing their technology, about valuing their innovation, then it becomes easy as a global standard to say, yes, we can look at them as an investor and see how we can take them forward and invest in them. The second thing that this valuation helps is, VC funding is only one of the ways a startup can raise money. There's a lot of debt financing that goes on. There's a lot of safe note or convertible debt that happens. But even for that, or for these startups that are in the innovation track, for them to access finance or the financial leveraging, that is also difficult because we don't know what is their value, what is their net worth, how do you give value to a startup. So this activity will really help and say the VC space, we would welcome this, and we would actually try to leverage the startup ecosystem, not just in Asia, but globally, to be a part of this and see, the information asymmetry challenges can be addressed with this going forward. One of the speakers before mentioned that the VC landscape was looking pretty grim in the beginning of COVID, but I'm happy to say that over the last 6 months, the venture capital funding that has been given to startups just in Asia has been phenomenal, because we have these problems that can be solved for the masses, right? We're seeing a lot of growth in 4 verticals. One is fintech for sure, which is leading across the platform. The other is edutech, or education and technology, with all the children going online, classes online. Health tech, the services being given through technology, e-prescription, patient-doctor consulting, and last but not least, agri-tech. We're seeing that these 4 verticals are growing phenomenally. What happened with COVID was that the digital transformation that COVID brought about, the acceleration of the digital transformation was phenomenal. And one example that we are all aware of is the tool that we're using today from the company called Zoom, that enabled all of us to get in the same room wherever we were and share. Meetings that would have been in person have now been possible through technology. So the valuation that would have been given to Zoom at that time versus now is huge because of the user adoption and consumption patterns. And similarly, the 4 verticals that we mentioned are actually growing high in valuation because of the reach that they have and the adoption by the customer. The challenge that we see in these cases is if the startup is in an advanced country like the United States or Canada or Europe, their valuation will be given at a much higher rate than if they are in an emerging economy. And that's where, if we could leverage with people, with what Oxford has prepared, if we could leverage that through the UN Tech Bank partnership, we can give these underserved markets a tool that they will have a common denominator, that this is the basic value given their traction, given their customer retention, given their customers on board. So that is a very, very important thing that we think this will help with going forward. And in the interest of time, I'll make it very short, but there are 3 other points. That one is that the world that we're going towards is going to be led by the Generation Z or the Generation Z, which is the mobile first, mobile only market, right? The 7 billion users will only be using mobile if we fast forward 3 to 5 years. And this growth of the fintech or mobile financial services will enable any kind of service to be given to anyone in the planet through a device and connectivity. Then when we give them that kind of power and amplify what kind of services each individual can get, that's when the VC space is heating up, but the customer money and the customer adoption is heating up. That's when we need partners with what Oxford is doing to allocate capital to growth sectors, to focus on digital services, and to empower founders that are very talented. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Sonia, for your insight, for sharing. If I could ask Mr. Vernon Sankey to share your thoughts. The floor is yours, please, sir.
Thank you very much. And again, I'm very honored to have been asked to speak. I'm just a humble businessman, and it's wonderful to see such an array of eminent professors and government representatives and people in very high places. I'm, as I said, just a humble businessman, a coach, a strategist, and somebody who's been in business all his life. So I really want to just make 3 points fairly quickly. The first is AI is in its infancy. Sitting as I do on the board of Atos, I can see all the developments that we're going into, and I can see that the world as we currently know it is going to be unimaginably transformed. And quite frankly, most people have no idea what is going to take place. What we see now, and just have slight hints of, with things like the Internet of Things and edge computing and so on, is a fraction of what is going to happen with AI. And so I think it's important that we understand the full implications of that, not just in the business community, but actually for humanity as a whole. The second point is, I sit on the board of Atos. I'm not actually chairman. I am the longest serving member on Atos. I'm very close to the chairman and the chief executive. They're very close friends. And I sit on the corporate social responsibility committee and the audit committee and the ad hoc committees and the strategy committees and so on. However, I'm not actually chairman. I wouldn't want to thank you for the promotion, but it's a bit over the top there. However, Atos is a very big company. I think our revenues were around 12 billion euros. We're very fast growing. And COVID has had very little impact in terms of the growth or the development or the investment whatsoever. I mean, in fact, if anything, it's accelerated. I think we're one of the top 3 companies in cybersecurity, for example, and obviously that has become very, very major topic, and it's all linked to artificial intelligence. We also make high-performance computers, and we're in all kinds of other areas, including sustainability, climate change, net zero assumptions, and how to use technology to do that. We're also all about collaboration. So we invest a lot collaborating with startups, collaborating with universities, collaborating with research institutions, and that is absolutely a fundamental part of our growth strategy. And I think, quite frankly, any corporate today that doesn't seek to collaborate with institutions, with governments and so on, will not survive very long, because the complexity and the developments that are taking place are so wide that no single company can possibly capture the huge number of variables that are involved. So collaboration is absolutely what we're about. We're very interested to learn about OxValue.ai. That may be of value to us. I mean, we are making acquisitions all the time, and a lot of them are smaller companies, they're small startups. So if afterwards somebody wants to contact me, I will make sure that goes to the right place. And I think the last point I want to say is that at the personal level, and so as a board member, but also a member of a corporate social community, and as a coach and an author, I am very concerned and very keen that the human dimension remains at the top of the agenda, not at the bottom. Human beings will need to be helped all over the world to manage this enormous revolution and transformation. What's happened with COVID has shown the interdependence that we have. We are all interdependent. We are not separate. And if we think we're separate, all we do is we create an environment in which there's conflict as opposed to collaboration. We create win-lose instead of win-win. And human beings need to evolve to the point where these massive changes in technology can be properly managed for the good of mankind, not for just one corporation or just one group of people or whatever. We are all interconnected in this, and it's becoming so obvious. And unless we rise above that, then we are going to use this technology in the wrong way. And so one of the major aspects of my work, if you like, is to try and bring this to the fore through our books and our coaching and all the other things we do, but also mainly through corporations, so that we can start to have a much wider perspective about what we're doing. We have a fantastic opportunity to do something remarkable in the world, but if we don't do it, the capacity for disaster is equally large. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Here I have, last but not least, we have Miss Zulara Abu Bakr. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eugene, and hello to everyone. It's definitely an honor for me to be here amidst the eminent list of speakers here, from technologists to academicians to government to businessmen. So it's definitely an honor and definitely a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me to the Oxford University, and thank you for hosting this conference today. I think this sort of a setting is something that we probably never imagined happening in the 2 years prior to this, and in this sort of a setting, and this norm has been one that has never been imagined before. And now it is becoming such a norm that you probably wouldn't imagine what life would be when we go back to where we were pre-pandemic. I personally have gotten so used to being in front of the screen, in front of virtual calls like this, and I'm almost forgetting how it feels like to be interacting in a group of people. But I guess that's really the downside of technology, I would say. However, I also cannot imagine not having Zoom or not having any other technology to actually support us in the last 2 years, as we battle through COVID. And the pandemic has just changed the way we do things tremendously. I think digital revolution, digital transformation is at its best right now. So, I mean, very quickly, just just to introduce myself and what I do, my name is Zulaira Abubakar, and I am the Group CEO of the Technology Park Malaysia, and probably the only representative from the government of Malaysia today. So Technology Park Malaysia is a government agency. We are under the auspices of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. So whatever that has been discussed in the last hour is something that we discuss almost every other day. Yes, so it's really about technology, innovation, commercialization. So the current entity or the agency that I currently head, I'm also double hatting because we're also working on a very important agenda for the country, which is called the Technology Commercialization Accelerator. Now, this concept has come about from an initiative of trying to solve an issue around commercialization, the rate of commercialization for the country, to increase the number of solutions that actually get to market, to increase the number of solutions that actually get funded, to increase the number of solutions that actually reach their end state, their end product, or the end market for that matter. So we look at cohesive efforts to increase that. So at the technology park in itself, we provide infrastructure, we provide access to market through collaboration with corporates, through collaboration with the private sector as well as the public sector. We enable government procurement, and we also work with technology funders, venture capitals, venture debt, banks, to ensure financing reaches technology and bring technology through its various cycles till it reaches the point of a mature business, a sustainable business. Just to backtrack, I come from a VC background. I'm a venture capitalist by training, and so valuation and investments is something that is very, very familiar to me, and it's really a passion of mine. However, in my current capacity, we don't directly invest, but we work with venture capital. Yeah, and we also provide acceleration. So the technology park is a combination of infrastructure, content, as well as network. But ultimately, our end goal or end state is to enable everything that is possible to launch businesses into the market. And I'm actually very pleased to be here and have had the opportunity to listen to everyone who has spoke before me, especially relating to technology valuation. I strongly believe that we need a very strong, focused, as well as targeted approach to valuing technology. And again, it's a structured way is actually required because you don't actually have a uniform method of valuating technology right now, which actually sends valuation in 10 different directions. Companies that need to be valued properly or given a certain premium aren't given those premium because the market is not ready. However, certain companies who have their value artificially bloated receive higher valuation. So I think it's very important for us to find a structured methodology to value technology, value businesses, and value startups. I think for venture capital as well as investors, it would prove as a guide, as well as those starting up businesses, right? If you're as a guide as well. So I think it's a very, very important topic. And we are also in the business of building network. So being in a network of international innovation collaboration is very, very important for us. And I think one important thing is you cannot achieve scale for a startup or for technology without collaboration. I think it's very, very important, whether it's nationally, whether it's locally and internationally. So we have to find a way to piece these international collaborations together in order to achieve that kind of scale. So I would love to have separate chats right after this, if it makes sense for us to continue to connect, to see how we can collaborate, to look at areas of technology, to promote, to support, And I think for Malaysia, we also have a current focus that we want to focus more on producing, developing technology. I think we have seen somewhat the downsides of being dependent on. I mean, it's not. I'm just not just speaking for Malaysia. I think for any country, for that matter, it is important to build capacity internally in order for us not to be completely dependent on external supplies for technology, talent, or anything for that matter, right? I think there needs to be some amount of self-sufficiency in order to grow, in order to scale, in order to support internal consumption as well as the economy. So we'd like to build that for the country, and I'm tasked to do that. So we're looking, I mean, you can think of us as an orchestrator of sorts, but I'd like to do the same thing internationally, and we want to bring in the right network and collaboration. But I think more importantly, we also need to bring in the right framework, the right collaboration model, the right structure into technology and innovation. Yeah, so I think with that, I will end my session. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your sharing. In fact, we overrun slightly, and I was asked and have the pleasure to say we wish to thank the co-organizers for today's forum. That is the Technology and Management Center for Development at the Oxford Department of International Development, University of Oxford, and also Open Business Council. And thanks everyone for all your participation and contributions. And at that point, I would announce the end of the forum today. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Many thanks to everyone.
Many thanks, Professor Fu, for the comment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great
Bye.
thanks to everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So let's keep in
We'll
touch.
keep you informed.
Thank you
Yeah.
all.
Keep in touch and
Thank you
keep
very
you
much.
informed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.